You're listening to Members of the Jury, the show that takes you straight into the trenches of justice, where the passion, players, and consequences are real. Each episode, we examine current events happening in the system. From the battles in courtrooms to the streets demanding reform, we bring those stories here to you, the members of the jury, because we aren't afraid to take it to the box.
What's up, members of the jury? Welcome back to season 4 of the show. And I'm so excited to return after a long hiatus. I've been growing my family, growing my practice and experience, and have really just been focused on those. And it's great to now have the time to get back. I was recently discussing with my wife what I thought this season and what was motivating me to return for season 4. And the thing that I think is just most pressing on my mind is the attack that I think is occurring on due process. Because as a public defender, my livelihood is seeing people who are accused of horrible things that are not always true by a government entity with all their power and all their resources. And it is because of the constitutional right of due process and the right to an attorney where individuals have their day in court and are able to overcome those allegations and not suffer unlawful punishments, let alone being deported to another country where a constitution wouldn't even apply. So all of that's going on, it just really fueled my fire to get back into it, to speak with amazing advocates across the country about their amazing successes from the defense side, going up against government entities making such wild and horrible allegations that aren't always often true. And it is important to give those individuals their flowers when they engage in such a battle and have success, because it is not the popular side of the justice system. And so with that, we have a great trial breakdown that we're going to get into. With me today is Deputy Public Defender Paloma. So Paloma, please introduce yourself to the members of the jury.
Hello, my name is Paloma. I'm a public defender, and I'm just excited to be here.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us. I think, one of the things that most intrigues people about our guest is what it was that motivated them specifically to become a public defender. Because as we both know, again, not only is the defense side not the popular side, but the public defender aspect of that side is even the less popular. So, how did you get here?
Honestly, I was in a little pre-law club in college, and then these public defenders came in to talk about their job, and how much they loved their job was honestly just radiating off of them. And they were like, the motto at our office is "fuck the police," and I was like, yes. I was like, okay, that works for me. I was like, I loved it, and I just think it's really important, because I think it's really important to me that people who can't afford to hire an attorney, that they still have good counsel. And so it's I just think that's super important. And also just the government and the weight of the government against people, and it just bothers me. So it's just, I don't know. Yeah.
Was the desire to be a public defender what was one of the main factors that led you even to go to law school, or is that becoming a public defender something you learned about and then desired once in law school?
Before law school. I went into law school wanting to be a public defender the whole time. I put all my eggs in the public defender basket, all of it.
Man, I love hearing that, because I hate when, especially in Hollywood, or the stigma is that people who are public defenders are, I think the old saying is, where those who cannot get a job elsewhere. And I just don't think that that's the modern day public defender, at least the ones that I know and that I engage with and share space with, because, I very similarly did the same. I mean, where I'm from, they didn't have necessarily the same individualized public defender system that I work for. And so I didn't know that concept. But once I was exposed to it, it was without hesitation. And I just think that it's such a rewarding thing to be in a space where knowing that that's not true. And to your point of everybody deserving the best representation, I think the attitude you have within a case is determinative of that, and the caliber or the length that you're willing to go to ensure that that individual gets the best representation despite the stigmas against public defenders. So I'd love to hear that. And we're so glad to be able to celebrate you because you're here today because you were able to do things that might be familiar to us, but not to the rest of the world because only 10% of, cases go to trial. And so you had the privilege of taking a matter, what we like to refer to here as to the box. So why don't you give us a breakdown of the case? Let us know what the charges were that went to trial and what were some of the facts in the police report that were the underlying reasons for the charges.
So basically, the two charges were corporal injury on a child and then cruelty to a child by inflicting injury or endangering a child by inflicting injury, something like that. So those two. And then I feel like the real crux of it was the corporal injury. It was to a kid that was 9 years old and he had a black eye. And it was basically alleged that my client had punched him in the face. And that's just simply not what happened. But the black eye was not great. It was a pretty decent black eye. But yeah, basically it was like a beach day and my client was the aunt and it was like her nephew. And
well, let me stop you right there. That's so interesting. So your client was a female.
Yes.
And family member.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my client and like her brother had taken the nephew and like another niece or something to the beach that day. And so basically this had happened when they were leaving a restaurant. They like went to the beach and got food and then they were leaving and everybody's getting in the car. And then it's basically this black eye happened then. So my defense and what happened was it was an accident, but the police report was like she punched him straight in the face.
How did the police get involved?
So basically, they had come home from this beach day, and there was my client's mom. She was dropping the kid off her mom slash the nephew's grandma's house. And he runs in and like the grandma notices that he has like something on his eye. And so grandma calls 911 and says that and she's immediately basically saying that like my client like punched him. And so like it comes from the grandma who like wasn't there and she calls the police basically.
Okay. Well, we'll get a better breakdown of like exactly how the evidence came out once we get into the factors of the case, but understanding that basically there was this family dispute and a grandma ended up calling. Was client related to grandma? Was that like her mom?
Yes,
like
that was her mom.
Okay. So essentially we have mom calling the police on her daughter for injuring her grandson.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what was your first thought? Because I'm immediately going to, clearly there's some familial grounds for like reasonable discipline, even if accident or not, and so was that something that ran through your mind when you were first seeing the case?
Yeah. I mean, also, I feel like important context was this was my first trial ever as an attorney. And so I was just very nervous about all of it, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And and that was kind of like basically what happened. It was in the midst of her like telling him that like disciplining him basically. But yeah, so that was my first thought. And then I was also just like, it was hard. It was kind of hard because I was just like, oh, like a black eye on a kid. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say that's a super hard first case because, conclusion being kid hurt.
Yeah.
Not great circumstances to like walk into. I definitely have had exposures to like cases where you try to do reasonable discipline and what was once maybe considered reasonable isn't now. And I think that there's a lot of context in there. And then especially depending on where one's lives, like cultural upbringings and cultural discipline styles also plays a role as to like what is acceptable and what's not. And so those are very sensitive cases and definitely ones that really your jury selection matters a lot. And I think that's a great segue to like Well, I guess before we get to jury selection, after you got the case and obviously hearing the defense and not really seeing a reason why you would plead guilty to a crime and under those circumstances resulting in trial, prior to getting into the jury selection and the phases of the trial, was there anything that occurred in the motions in limine that had a significant impact in the case?
Yeah, I think so. I got the 911 call excluded because basically the grandma had called 911, and obviously like 911 calls usually come in because they're like contemporaneous, spontaneous, like whatever, under the heat of the moment. But what was different was that grandma wasn't at the beach at all, and so she was literally calling after the fact, and it was kind of this like perfect setup in a way, because like grandma called 911 and she's like, I want to make a report. And the 911 operator was like, this is not the appropriate line for that. Like, this is for emergencies that are currently happening. And the grandma was kept wanting to like say like, oh, my grandson has a black eye, like da 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 da. And the 911 operator was like almost kind of annoyed, because she was like, this is not what this line is for. Like, I'll help you out because we're here, but this is not what this line is for. And you're reporting a crime, and this is for emergencies. And so in my eliminates, I literally just said verbatim, like the exact script from the 911 operator. I was like, even the 911 operator said that this wasn't an emergency. So like, this can't come in. And yeah, the judge agreed with me and excluded it. And I thought that was pretty significant, because that was the first time that anyone called it a punch. And that was just like, it came from somebody who was not there. Like, she just saw the black eye.
Okay, so the 911 call doesn't come in, but grandma, I guess, precursor, does grandma ultimately testify?
Nope.
Oh, so because when the 911 calls, then they don't even call her. Well, that's a huge win. That's a huge win. Okay, I think that had definitely a huge impact on the case. So take us to the opening statements. Without the grandma evidence, what was it that the prosecutor really relied on in their opening statement?
They basically, their whole theme and theory was that this is never okay. And it was about the black eye. And so I think their focus was emphasizing how bad the injury looked. And it was like, a pretty big black eye on a kid. So I think that was just kind of what their whole thing was, like, this is never okay. I remember them saying that.
Fair to say that they were doing like a lot of emphasis as to like what happened, but not so much focusing as to how.
Yeah.
Okay. And was that something then that you capitalized in your opening statement, or what was your focus on?
My theme for the case was accidents happen. I was like, accidents happen, bad accidents happen, and they're accidents nonetheless. And so that I was focusing on kind of like the how we got there, how this happened, and theirs was just like, look at this black eye.
What was it about the evidence that led you to go with the theme of it being an accident?
My client. Yeah.
Okay. Knowing your client's point of view, what was it about in the prosecution's case in chief where you were also able to connect your dots as to it being an accident? Was there anything you were able to take from their side and rely on as well?
I think in my opinion, I don't know if this answers your question at all, but I feel like the version of the story, the version of the story that they were putting out, I just think didn't actually match up with the facts, and like their story didn't match the evidence, in my opinion. And like the fact that it was an accident did. And I think they were trying really hard to make it seem like this was just like blatant child abuse, punch in the face. My client's a piece of shit who like hates her nephew or something.
Well, what witnesses did they call?
The kid. So that was also like
the 9-year-old.
The 9-year-old, and then he was 11 at the time. So of the trial. So it's been a couple years since this happened.
First ever trial, first cross-examination is against an 11-year-old.
Yes. Yes, I was terrified. Like, I feel like the fact that it was my first trial ever, like, really just like colors the whole thing, because I did it. And the prosecutor was like the interim like supervisor at the time. And so I was really stressed. And then like I knew my client was gonna testify, and she had strike priors. And I was like,
that came in
like sanitized.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, oh my gosh. So tell me about, was this 11-year-old? Was he like combative? Well, I guess, what was his version on direct? What was the prosecutor able to elicit out of him?
Honestly, I don't think he was that good of a witness for them. He was like, obviously he didn't want to be there. I think a lot of witnesses don't really want to be there, but like he didn't seem like he really wanted to be there. He didn't remember much. And when we talked to the jury after, that had an impact on them because their case was that this was like this punch in the face, and then he doesn't really seem to remember it, and he doesn't really find it to be that significant. And that was something that
Oh,
he had said, like, well, if it was like this big thing that happened,
uh-huh.
I feel like he would remember that. And he was also
I love that.
misremembering things. And so on direct, he's like kind of like explaining things in the sequence of events that like I know is not really true. And I also know that the body worn they're gonna play is gonna show that that's not true. And so I was like, and it was just like because he's 11, this happened 2 years ago, and he just wasn't really remembering things correctly. The things that he did remember, like, were not accurate, and it was just kind of like,
So then on cross-examination, was he combative with you or
honestly, no, he
okay?
honestly wasn't. And I was like,
That's nice.
yeah, yeah, he
I had
wasn't
I
combative.
crossed a 16-year-old who like almost wanted to like fight me.
Oh my
It
God.
was confrontational. I was like insulting. He felt I was insulting his mother. It was a whole thing. It was so it's tough. I've been there, especially with so it depending on their version of how they went there. And mine was very indignant and combative, and luckily for me, it wasn't my very first trial. So I've had that. No, seriously though,
Yeah.
seriously. I mean, cross examination can be super tough, and like as you can see, like the impression on the jury can be so impactful. I mean, from what you said, more or less, what won the case was the opinions in which they had on the victim who testified and his lack thereof. Well, the same can be super true with regard to a client and their behavior, or unfortunately, whether or not people even like you as the attorney or not.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have like difficult or confrontational cross examinations with like police officers. So,
Yeah.
that's definitely a tough experience, but glad that was able to be beneficial for you. Was there any other witnesses? I'm assuming they called some police officers after the fact.
They called, I think they only called one. Did they call one or two? One sticks out to me because I remember, like, also, again, first trial. So it's like, I don't really know what's normal. I don't know what's like, this happens all the time. But it was funny because obviously when cops come, now I know they either come in their whole getup, the
Mm-hmm.
whole badge and whatever, or like a really nice suit. Like, I feel like there's like, that's one of these two. But this guy shows up and like, I don't know, it was more like business casual. I don't know why that was just so funny to me. Like it was just like crew neck sweater and like regular pants and like loafers with socks. Like he just looked like this random regular dude, like not a cop, not like a professional witness. And prosecutor, like after he testified, was kind of like, what the fuck is he wearing? And that was kind of funny. I guess that didn't happen like on record. I don't know. But that was funny to me.
It might have been his first trial too.
I did get him like honestly it might have been because he did end up admitting stuff that I didn't think he would admit.
Oh,
And
if it wasn't his first, it was one of his first then.
because like something that was significant in my opinion was that like when they interview the kid, they do it in front of the grandma and his uncle, who is my client's brother. And both of them are kind of just like, tell the truth, like tell the truth. You just got to tell the truth. And there's like a lot of like coercion, in my opinion. Like that was a lot of pressure on this kid in this interview. And so I had asked the cop like that about, isn't that like not normal, that aren't you supposed to isolate them when you interview them? And he kind of admitted that, yeah, you're supposed to do that. And no, we didn't do that. And then also the uncle and the grandma had different ideas of kind of like how this black eye occurred. I don't know, that ended up being significant too, because like the grandma wasn't there, uncle was there. They never called uncle, which was like he was the only other adult there other than my client. And so, and then they had this kid witness. Yeah, this trial also happened in like one day. This was like opening evidence, closing verdict.
Oh wow,
So it was very short. Like,
kind of nice though.
yeah, it was. It really was.
I mean, all of the highs and lows in a day. That's not fun, but I mean, in a way, it is because you get what we know is the result. So that's fantastic. Was there anybody else in the car, like an adult?
Just the brother, like my client's brother, and then it was like the kid, the complaining witness, and then it was like a 2-year-old or something. So it was only like these four people in the car or around the car at the time, because it happened while they were getting in the car. Like she was like, my client was like putting some kid in a, was it car seat, and it was like a lot of commotion that way. But yeah, like what happened, this is what happened was that basically the 9-year-old, he was kind of like going through like a little bad kid phase. Like he was kind of just like stealing stuff, like stealing money, buying Roblox cards, like doing stuff like that. And my client was like trying to tell him to like stop doing that, and like kind of like snap out of it, kind of like stop doing that.
Were you able to ask him about any of those bad behaviors?
No, I don't think I did. And I think it was like a mix of like one, I barely know how to cross-examine at this point.
Certainly.
So
Not saying that. No, it's not saying that like you didn't, but I'm saying like that could obviously be an issue if that's how you felt.
no, yeah, like it really like, and I was terrified also like to cross a kid, and like I didn't
Yeah.
want to be a bitch. Like I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
to like be this like
But
small ass, like you're a piece of shit, right? Like, like
but the bad behaviors were able to come out through your client testifying.
yes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Did I want to back up real quick though, because I can't remember if I asked. Did the brother get called?
No, because brother was like did not. No, yeah, but they did not call brother. Yeah.
Okay. So they put on kid and officer witnesses,
Yes.
and that's it.
Yeah. And that was it.
Okay. No kind of like expert or anything.
No.
Okay. The police were like, yeah, we just believe this kid, or like,
Like, yeah, and the grandma.
what did they say that the kid said to them at the time? Wasn't he was doing what Auntie said, and she just said "pow" right in the kisser for no reason? Like what? Like to get to this point, like you know what I mean? Like to say, okay, clearly it's not. It's beyond the pale of just the eye test of like parental discipline or reasonable discipline of a family member on a child. Like I guess what were the summary of facts or the allegations that led to that? Like, I don't think I've been clear if I've gotten that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that like it really wasn't him driving this boat, I guess. When they were asking him questions, like with the uncle there and the grandma there, and like they're asking him like, where did this come from? And he's saying, my auntie did that. Like, and so he's saying, my auntie did that. And like they're asking like, who hit you? And he's saying, my auntie, which is like not true, but it was an accident. So it was like that part wasn't really becoming clear, because I also think like this kid's being interviewed with these adults who like very much want him to say something in particular. The grandma wants him to say something in particular, and the uncle is like, wants him to say something in particular, or that's like just kind of the energy that I got from that scenario. And like this kid is just like sitting there, and I feel like he was just trying to give everybody what they wanted to hear. And so, and then, yeah, that's what my understanding of it was, because I just didn't like the way that they interviewed this kid. And it was just so not like, I feel like it was just like kind of suggestive, I guess. But yeah.
And is that essentially where you went with your cross-examination of the officers?
Yeah. And like that, yeah, how they interviewed him. And how like, clearly there are these two adults in the room and they are opposed to each other. And then they're both telling the kid, just tell the truth, just tell the truth. But it's like they both have different ideas of what the truth are.
And so they call their witnesses, rest, and then your client testifies. Is that the only witness that you call?
Yeah. Just my client.
Okay. Well, and so give me that experience too, because, even there have been plenty of defense attorneys who have been practicing for years and have done numerous trials who don't, one, even get the experience to put on any evidence, let alone their client testifying. And so what was that experience like during the trial, and how do you feel she did while on the stand?
She did great, because she was just honest. She was so honest, and like she was very real. She was very honest and real the whole time. Like even her seeing her nephew, like there was a full CPO, but like for years, because it happened like 2 years ago. As soon as he took the stand, she was sobbing, crying, like, wow, he's so big now. Like she hadn't seen him in so long. And she cried when she was on the stand because I brought up like I got obviously got ahead of the fact that she has priors, which is funny. The jury like brought that up to me later. They're like, they were like, I'm surprised that you brought that up. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna let the prosecutor do it. But it really made everything make sense because she was a bad kid at one time. And she got into a lot of trouble as a kid, and that turned into her being an adult who got in trouble and then caught these felony convictions. And so when she's talking to him and she's trying to get him to snap out of it and like not do shit like that, it's because she doesn't want him to follow the same path as her. And that was her truth, and that was the truth. And that's why it was an accident that it was like in the course of this discipline, she's also very frustrated because she's seeing herself in him, but like in the worst way. That she's like, I know where this goes. And so that came out in her testimony, and she was very real and very honest about it. And it also like softened because then when they try to cross her on like, oh yeah, and they're convicted for crimes of moral turpitude, right? And it's like no one knows what that fucking means.
What aspects about the prior convictions were they able to get into aside from their existence? Like were they able to get like the penal code or what it was for?
No, they didn't get anything other than the fact that it was a felony conviction for a crime of moral turpitude. And
Okay.
yeah, and they couldn't get into any of it because it was like propensity otherwise.
Certainly, because, I mean, they just want to try to potentially allude to the fact that if it was, felonious behavior and worth being brought up, it had to be some type of violent issue, especially when you're dealing in a case with that. I know that that's definitely the presumption. And so explain to me how you went through that before the members of the jury without really going into the depths of those cases, but discussing their existence and knowing that they were going to be brought up. Like, what was that conversation like with your client on the witness stand?
It was like, I feel like I just went for it kind of like head on, like, and you've been convicted of a felony before, but like, I was like, I got ahead of it very directly and was just like, so, like, have you ever been convicted of a felony or of a crime? And then she was like, yes. And then I think I asked like a couple more follow-ups and like, and yeah, and then it was like a really like that's I think when things got like really emotional because that was like coming back for her because like obviously it's not something she was like super proud of. But yeah, and then like kind of just getting her like she was like so easy to ask questions to because she was answering them so honestly and it was just like very earnest and she was just being so honest and about something that really sucked and it was really very easy to do.
Was she able to like maintain her demeanor while on both direct and cross examination when the prosecutor had an opportunity to cross her?
She was like a little bit like more guarded with the prosecutor, but she was still just like she was still very honest and she was like honestly holding her ground that she didn't punch the shit out of her nephew. Like that's just not what happened. And you could tell like because that it's just not what happened. Like
Was there any like discussion of like, was it an open hand or closed hand? Was it like a
yes.
cock back? How much power was used? Like, this is where I'm all like, I'm just like, it just baffles that like, and this is what, this is such a good example as like kind of simplistic as it is, honestly, though. It's such a good example, though, of how individuals can find themselves looking at charges, have these allegations, and this is as easily could be said that she's a child beater. And it sounds like it's the farthest thing from the truth, at least from the evidence that what I'm presenting or that they had or all of these things. And so I just think that even in its simplest form, and I think it's a great set of facts just to show even on a basic like set of circumstances. Like, I mean, anybody who has any, younger siblings, nieces or nephews know that you're going to be roughhousing or even trying to invoke discipline. and there is just an imaginary barrier that's flirted with, sometimes crossed. You don't know how individuals are going to react, and all of that. And the intent is the most important thing, and off the back. And so for this individual, for this woman to be able to have her day in court and be able to get this result, I think it's so on brand with what we're seeking. And so I think that it's such a great example. During the trial, was there any highlighting or utilization of photographs, body-worn camera, videos? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So the big picture was like the straight on like face picture of the kid with the black eye, and that was like their whole thing. And I think they wanted to use it in opening, but I had objected to it. But like I like kind of messed up because I didn't object to it in limbs, and I like just like forgot or like didn't realize, I don't know, again, first trial. And then so I went back the next day and I was like, wait, I object to this. Like, this is actually prejudicial. And like, then they weren't able to use it in their opening. And then because like we had to figure that out first, basically, or like right after that, because I'd said like, I can't remember why. I was just like, it was prejudicial and just like, don't put it up in opening, like foundation hasn't been laid for it yet. Yeah, I think that's the only time I've ever actually had that work. And that was their big thing. And then the body-worn camera of the interview with the kid and like the positioning of everything. So those were the two big things that they used. And then their closing, the picture of the kid with the black eye, and then that's when they were like, this is never okay. And they basically just like had that up and were just like, this is never okay. And just to like, I think they really wanted to just, the picture was supposed to have an emotional impact that like everything else didn't matter, but like there was just so much more to the story.
And so during their case in chief, they did utilize the body-worn camera interview of the child with the police officer.
Yeah, they did. And so, yeah. And that's why it was like when I was like crossing the kid, like it was very soft and then so like he's like answering these questions and he's not like when I'm crossing him and he is not lying. He's just misremembering, but like he's saying things wrong, whatever. I have the opportunity to impeach him, but I'm like, I'm not going to because I don't want to impeach a kid. Like, I don't really think that, like, I don't want to start off this trial that way. And then I also, like I'd said, I knew the body worn was going to kind of explain that he's not remembering this correctly. And that's, I feel like, exactly what happened. And there was a moment when he was on direct that she did ask kind of like, what did her hand look like when she hit you or something like that? And he mentioned that he got hit with her knuckles. And then the prosecutor was like, so when she punched you in the face, and I objected to that because I was like, that is not what he said. Like he had said knuckles, but there are so many ways to get hit with knuckles. And so my explanation of it, which is more accurate because of the way the situation happened, was that she was basically reaching back when she was like getting everybody in the car. She's putting a kid in a car seat. And then it's like one of those cars where it's like the two seats and then like the row in the back, basically. And so she was like reaching her arm back, like kind of not looking where she was going with her arm and trying to get him in the shoulder. And then she had like kind of tapped him in the shoulder because he wasn't listening to her. Obviously, she's trying to like lecture him about like, hey, stealing money's not good. Like you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. He's not listening. He doesn't want to listen. Like he's a kid. Like, and so he's just like not paying attention to her, and she's trying to get him to pay attention. So she's throwing her hand back like that, but she's reaching back in the car and she's not looking at where she's doing it. So it's like, yeah, it is like she got him with her knuckles, but it's because she was like kind of throwing it like her knuckles back there without like really 100% like he flinched and then she got him in the eye. And so it was kind of like that. And so like they took like, oh, her knuckles made contact with his eye, and so like she punched him, and it was just like not quite. And so that's why accident, I think, prevailed, because it was an accident, and just the way that everybody was positioned in the car and stuff. It's like, at what point did she have the opportunity to like pull back and swing on him? Like that's not what happened. And so yeah, I feel like that was significant when he was testifying, and like he never said that he was punched. Like he never said that. It was everybody else saying that because you see a black eye, and like I feel like that's a lot of people's initial reactions, like, oh, you got punched in the face.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's just not the only explanation for it. So
Okay, so then take me to the closings, because it sounds like what was their focus then? If they can't rely on the victim saying he got punched, and your client is saying that it was an accident, what was their focus on? I mean, what I'm thinking, like, was there any comment on like the potential discrepancy of like, but it resulted in like I'm assuming they just focused on like there's no way it was like a light accidental disciplinary touch if it resulted in that extensive of a black eye.
yeah, I think that was like their whole thing with, especially like, this is never okay. Like, this isn't a result of an accident. Like, this is too bad of an injury to be an accident. And that's why like my like counter theory to that was like, bad accidents happen. Like, and it's still an accident. It's a bad
Beautiful.
accident, but it's an accident.
Right.
And that, yeah, and then also like, I think the voir dire of this whole thing was like super interesting too, because also like my voir dire kind of sucked. Like, I didn't know how to
It's the
do that.
hardest part. It's the
It's
hardest
so
part.
hard. And like I wasn't very good at it. I honestly think I got more information just watching like the prosecutor do her voir dire, because like I was like, oh shit, she's asking way better questions than me. Like, oh, okay, like, And
At
so
least it's the who you don't want.
yeah, I was like, wow, I got so much more out of that. But like voir diring, and like when we were doing challenges, like I was like losing track of how many I had kicked. Like it was honestly like it was so hard.
Let me interrupt because I want to take you to your closing. It's like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I can imagine the amount of emotions that you were going through at that point in time. Like
Yeah, I was pissed, honestly.
to stand, but you're standing before the jury that you picked through all the emotions, through that you've just done all this evidence in one way or the other. You used the term pissed. I'm interested. Why do you think that was the emotion at the forefront?
Because it bothered me the way
I love that though. By the way,
it bothered me the way that they were talking about her, and like saying that she did this thing, and that she like it bothered me, because I was just like, that's not true. This is not what happened. And like the evidence doesn't even like support that. And don't lie on her. Like, I was pissed. I was like, and so I went up there, and I was like, I think I was really passionate because I was upset. I was genuinely like mad for my client, because it was wrong to me. It was just really wrong. And that it bothered me. I was pissed, and I was just like,
okay, so you were pissed going into it. What were you feeling when you finally sat down and you realized, okay, I've just concluded my first trial. Like I put everything I had into this case. What were the emotions going through your mind then?
I was just like, kind of like, what happens now? What's gonna happen? Because
That wait is not fun.
yeah, yeah, and I was worried. I was really worried, because I couldn't read the jury at all. Like, I don't know, they're staring at you like blank
Yeah.
faces. Couldn't read them. I was just like, I tried. I was like, I feel like I tried my best, and I got her story out there, and
Hmm.
I really tried, and I feel like it was clear that I really gave a shit, and I was just kind of like, like I did my best. Like, and I'm also like, this is my first trial ever. Like, you can only go up from here. You're learning from this, also things that you did wrong or not wrong, and like things that worked or things that like you think are going to be the end of the world. Like, I misnumbered my in limbs, and that was like, I was so I was like, so like, that's so stupid, like just a like stupid little mistake. But I was like, oh, that's so embarrassing. Like, I hate doing shit like that. And I just did that in another trial. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so, but because it was my first trial, I was so like,
Hmm.
I'm so sorry, Your Honor. Like, and so just like kind of realizing that, you can kind of relax sometimes. Like, you can, not everything is the end of the world. And like, you can make some mistakes and things still work out. That was probably the biggest thing that I learned, is that you can make mistakes. You can feel like you're fucking it up, and then you actually walk your client. It was just crazy.
So after you rest and the case went to the jury, I know you said everything ended up coming back in the same day. How long were they ultimately out for?
I think it was a little over an hour.
Okay. And you said in total your client was looking at, was it 2 or 3 charges?
Two.
Okay, and the verdicts on both of them were, drumroll.
Not guilty.
Hey, Freedom Friday. Let's go. What a fantastic journey that had end result that had to have been Paloma. All of the emotions of everything that was laid out on the table, that has to be so vindicating for not only you, but for your client. And again, right on brand with what the season's all going to be about, and the significance and importance of due process, and how just because a government says allegations are impressed upon an individual does not make them true. And everybody, regardless of citizenship status, is entitled to due process and fair hearings. And so I just love that we were able to highlight such a important societal notion in a very more or less simplistic set of facts. And I thought you did a fantastic job. Previously, I would always ask my guests, what was the significance of taking this matter to the box? But I think, what is really conceptually the importance is, especially now as a practicing attorney and seeing firsthand, the constitutional rights at play. What is something you would say you learned from taking this matter to the box?
Other than it's okay to kind of not beat yourself up about little mistakes that you're making along the way, not knowing how many peremptories you've used or misnumbering your in limbs or something like that, but that you can trust jurors a little bit more than you think. I was really worried about trusting them to see this for what it was, and they did. And that was honestly really, really relieving, because it was kind of just the confirmation that I'm not misreading this situation. This is an accident. This was very clearly an accident. And then to just kind of have that affirmed, because it was also one of the only juries that I've had actually stick around to talk after. And it was kind of a little bit funny, because I hate to say it, but the jurors talking to both me and the prosecutor, and one of the jurors literally looked at the prosecutor and was like, "Why did you pick me?" and it was and then it was kind of just she was like, "What?" Because obviously in the jury selection process, we talk about child abuse and discipline and stuff like that. And he was one of the people who said that he saw it when he was a kid and it really disturbed him. But I just had a gut feeling that, that he was still a good juror. And I ended up being right to the point that he was confused why the prosecutor even picked him in the first place. I've never seen a juror confront a prosecutor on picking them before. It was also my first jury, so I hadn't seen a lot before. But that was kind of reaffirming, because then also they were asking they were this shouldn't have made it to this point. This is a family dispute. There should be services involved. There should be other things involved that are not police and courts. And that was really that felt good to hear, because it's I think a lot of things should be dealt with in ways that don't involve police. And that was just good to hear. I was okay, cool. There are people in the community that are on our jury panels that also don't think that police need to be involved in every single thing, and that the courts and jail and all this stuff make things worse. And so that was really cool to see.
Well, that was very beautifully said, and I want to thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. It was, again, truly a pleasure to hear that story, hear that result. I want to encourage anyone listening, and also thank you as well for tuning in to another episode. If there's anything going on in our country dealing with, due process or, the importance of the system, go ahead and share it with me. I'm happy to do a breakdown or have you on the show to discuss it. You can find me on social media at Members of the Jury, or even send me an email at lhursty@membersofthejurypod.com. Paloma, audience, thank you so much, and we'll be back later this month with another episode of Members of the Jury. Well, members of the jury, that's our show, and I rest my case. Be sure to come back next episode as we take another matter to the box. If you're a fan of the show, go ahead and subscribe. You can also find us on social media at Members of the Jury.
If you want to be a guest or have any feedback, be sure to email us at lhursty@membersofthejurypod.com. The information in this podcast is provided as general reference work as a public service. The audience is advised to check for changes to current laws and to consult with a qualified attorney on any legal issue. The use of this material does not create an attorney-client privilege in any fashion with the podcast, the host, or the guest. This information is for educational purposes only, and no one affiliated with the podcast may be held liable for any decision made based on this information.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.